Good morning. Today is Monday, the 18th of the year 2026. And this morning on the Dear Church podcast, we have a very special episode. We're talking about, you know that phrase, taxation without representation?
Do I know the phrase?
No, like
After you just said it, yeah.
no, you've heard it, right?
I think I've heard
You've
it.
heard
yeah.
it said.
Yeah.
Well, take away the taxation without,
Uh-huh.
and then representation, and then add in worship. That's our episode today. Representation and worship. But you've heard the phrase. I think.
I like how you keep things light. It's good.
Wait, how heavy would you like me to like intro?
No, it's good. It's nice and light. You told a joke before we started. Would you like to tell a joke here?
No.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping we'd talk about the French. But I guess not.
What is that? What do they do?
The French?
Yeah.
Why don't French people like fast food?
I don't know if I'm gonna like this one. I really hope I don't like it.
Because they eat snails? Why is that even funny?
No, because snails are traditionally slow, except for Turbo, but traditionally.
Okay. There was a race between two cats.
Okay.
An English cat and a French cat.
Okay.
You can tell I don't like French people.
Okay.
I actually like French people, but for the podcast, I will don this character of not liking French people.
Okay.
All right. There's an English cat and a French cat. The English cat's name is 123.
Okay.
The French cat's name is Entre Trois. Who won the race?
Probably the English cat.
The English cat won the race. You know why?
Or why?
Because Entre Trois cat sank.
Oh, like he sank. This is a swimming race. You know, I think so. What I found, not only in scientific research but in personal experiences, laughing on Mondays are helpful. So
Is it? Okay.
I think so. Yeah, because people always talk about like the Monday blues or whatever, Sunday blues or whatever, and you know people are getting ready to go to work on Monday morning. And I think the fact that our podcast releases on Monday morning is another bright spot in people's day. So there's also that aspect of it, and. You know, all jokes aside, you know, taxation without representation was a real thing. But today we are talking about representation in worship, what that means, what that looks like. Is that something that's good? Is that something that we should be aiming for? And so we'll talk about all these topics a little bit more this morning, and a little bit more this morning, and a little bit more this morning. I don't like the way that and a little bit more this morning. On the Dear Church podcast, you are listening to the DCP. Welcome to the Dear Church podcast, where we exist to fill your ears and your minds with the study of God to see the world as disciples of Christ. My name is Sam Yang. We are with us Pastor Gene and Chunseok and David. And today, again, we are talking about representation. And I think one of the reasons why I want to bring this topic up, and you know, you had mentioned this at the tail end of our episode last week, but this idea of representation has been very popular as of late. Recently, there has been some movement, even within Reform circles, for churches to have better or more representation. Right. Whether it's representation among genders, whether it's representation among different ethnic groups or cultures. Surprisingly, not so much in age, though. Interestingly enough. Like, we don't want 2-year-olds up there. Like Goo Goo Gaga and whatever. So, interestingly enough, not in age. But there is a call and a desire, I think, oftentimes for representation. And there have even been some biblical references like Revelation 7:9, and I'll read that for us. After this, I looked, and behold, a great multitude that no one could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and languages, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes with palm branches in their hands. And so when we read a text like this, I think some churches may want to strive for this goal that we see in the book of Revelation. And so that's why I think representation is held to such a high degree. So I guess the question for this podcast in general today is going to be, how important is representation in worship? Is representation necessarily a bad thing? And when is representation a good thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of people model their churches or want to aspire to be a church like the church in Antioch, where you would have what we believe to be a multi-ethnic leadership in Antioch. And of course, that's where we first called Christians, right?
Yep.
Acts 10 to 13, right? And so one thing that we should note or start off with is that the gospel does not obliterate or somehow abolish ethnicity or culture. But however, it does take away or dethrone it as ultimate identities.
Okay.
Because you are a new identity in Christ, right? So there's no Greek or Jew, circumcision or uncircumcision, barbarian or Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all in all.
So that's true. That's true. But I think maybe one of the arguments that people make are, okay, well, let's just say you have a Hispanic population in your congregation. If you have only Korean people up on stage, it may not be the most comfortable for the Hispanic population. Let's have one Hispanic leader up there or two up there based on the percentages. Like, it's to make your congregation feel more comfortable, feel more at home, feel like they belong to this church. Is that such a bad thing? Although there is really no separate races, isn't comfort a big thing for a congregation?
Yes and no. I'll just say yes and no for now. I would say yes, only if, let's say, in the example that you cited, that this Hispanic congregation does not speak your language or understand your culture.
That would be different. Right.
Maybe they're more in tune with, Latino culture and that's what they want or that's what they understand, in like the distribution. It's part of the way they, even ration food or something like that. It's different within the cultures, and it's much easier if you have someone that understands the culture that helps with that kind of distribution, which we saw in Acts chapter 6. And I would say no in the sense where, again, we got to go back to the primary and ultimate identity. Our ultimate identity is in Christ. So let's say they are ethnically Hispanic, but they speak perfect English. They grew up in America, or they grew up in whatever country that you're talking about, and they happen to have the exact same culture, barring maybe some, they're better at speaking Spanish or something like that, or making empanadas, and the Koreans are better at speaking Korean and making kimchi, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Barring something like that, but you have one primary language, one primary culture, and they still don't feel comfortable. And I think that is a problem that we should delve into today. Because I think that's true. I think people have a problem when they look at the stage and people don't look like them.
So is the problem with the leadership that won't have representation on stage, or is the problem within our own minds? Like, where is the problem?
It could be both. I mean, that's a complex question. It could be both, but it could be the fact that the leadership refuses to, let's say, vet other leadership that are qualified and add them to the group to make their leadership more robust.
Okay.
But it could be also bad, whereas if, let's say in your case, the leadership doesn't change, and we'll just take the very classic example, the leadership's all white and the congregation is all not white, whatever it is, and they refuse to accept new leadership, maybe they're not looking for qualified men anymore. Maybe they're looking for just to keep that power themselves. Who knows? That could be the case. But it also could be, there are no qualified men.
Right.
Let's say, classic examples, when you go to the DR, there are no qualified men. That's what they really want. They want qualified men there. So they go and train, and men just don't want to be pastors there. And so you have missionaries there, and maybe one or two pastors, three pastors, but for the most part, the churches are filled with women. And so men just don't want to take on that, that mantle of responsibility, perhaps in some certain cultures. And so you'll still have, let's say, a majority of leadership from the outside of the community. Maybe that's the case.
Gotcha. So I guess maybe, could you actually maybe we could backtrack a little bit and could you kind of fill us in on perhaps why this whole idea of representation comes up, why we feel the need for representation, where that even comes from, and whether that's a legitimate concern or a legitimate care or not?
Yeah, so I'll start with this. The early church did have a multi-ethnic leadership that we saw, that I mentioned. But that multi-ethnic leadership was by necessity. It wasn't driven by programs of inclusivity. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It wasn't driven by modern diversity programs.
Right.
It was driven by gospel necessity.
Yeah.
It would imply then, when you saw that, the glorious union, this is Chrysostom, the glorious implication of union with Christ. That means Christ does draw people from all nations. So places like Antioch and other places in Asia Minor, we saw that there were a lot of people from different ethnic backgrounds. The diaspora gathered in certain places, especially in Acts, chapter 2 that we saw, them coming together. And so the gospel would necessitate multi-ethnicity because that's what was there. But multi-ethnicity, but what we mean by multi-ethnicity here is not just different faces, but different cultures and languages. Do you see why America is a little different? America is different because we have one language, one nation, and we may have some subcultures, but we do have one culture.
Yeah.
And that's the American culture. This is something that people are pushing back. They're going to push back on. America doesn't have a culture. We're just borrowing from all these other cultures, which is, again, something that we try to prove over and over in this podcast. That's false. America does have a culture. When people incorrectly, there was a viral video of Tom Holland giving that face like, what now? That kind of face. When someone said to someone else, "What's your favorite American food?" and they said hamburger. It's like, because he was like, hamburger is from Hamburg, Germany. It's not from America, which we pointed out, hopefully correctly here historically, that's false.
Because the Hamburg steak is from Germany.
They had versions of the hamburger that we have, but the actual hamburger was created by German immigrants in the United States. Yeah. And so the hamburger is an American creation, just like egg foo young.
What about chicken parmesan? One of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's straight up Italian.
Oh, I thought that was American.
Could be. You could look it up. I mean,
make it with American cheese, it becomes American. Hamburgers are from Connecticut, success. With no mic.
Actually, yeah, there are multiple places that can take, say, this version of the hamburger started in this place in America. It was like, I looked it up in a while back, but it was like 4 different places, Connecticut being one of them. But the same thing with
pizza,
English muffins. Yeah, it's here.
English muffins are from America. What about Dutch ovens? Not.
Something that we ought to start with is, and this is, if you don't start from here, you'll lose everything.
Yeah.
Whatever is multi-ethnic that we see in the gospel was by gospel necessity. In the Bible was by gospel necessity. It isn't a gospel necessity to be multi-ethnic. I hope that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what is the difference between, is there a higher value between someone, like let's say a church that has a multi-ethnic church rather than someone that has a mono-ethnic church, meaning like, let's say, an all-white church versus white plus black plus brown plus yellow church? Is there a value difference? And I will say that, first of all, no, but secondly, I don't agree with that separation because, again, I think we're one culture. If you really got people from, Nairobi in the church, you know what I mean? And they're not even American. They're just from Nairobi. And they're going to go back in a year or something like that. You got them. And then you got people from, Argentina. Again, they're going to go back in a year. Well, again, that's the diaspora. They're going to go back in a year. And you got them in your church. And then you got somebody from Thailand. Oh. And they're going to go back in a year. And you got all these people. And they make up the church because they all happen to be in this one space because of some event. And they have to eventually go back. But when they go back, they're going to spread the gospel in their areas. And so you need someone that speaks Thai. You need someone that can speak, that Nairobi language. You need someone that can speak, Argentinian? No, you need someone that speaks Spanish.
Yeah, probably Swahili for Nairobi, right?
I would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need someone that speaks that, and then you have that kind of multi-ethnic leadership to help with that. That's one thing. But if everyone's speaking English, and everyone grew up here, the continual division that we make and the separations and the compartmentalizing of people is actually it's detracting from not just unity as citizens of the government, but it detracts from gospel unity because you continue to separate yourselves when there is no separation, not even physical separation, cultural separation. There really is none. And you can't be like, well, I have, this kind of culture that I really enjoy. I don't want to lose if I get mixed in the melting pot of this church. What is it that you really wanted to keep? You can't keep it if you do that. And so honestly, what is it that you want to keep? You want to keep on eating kimchi? You want to keep on eating, I don't know, whatever food that you're from? That's why you can't join this church? And I would say what you are supposed to understand as not even primary, you have made primary. And that, I would think, is a foolish thing to do.
So what if someone were to respond to saying, okay, I get it that we are one race and that there is no division amongst the body of believers. But if you look at it practically, if you look at everywhere around our country now, there is some sort of practical separation in cultures and even skin tones, let's say, right? In cultures, in language and all that kind of stuff. So even practically speaking, I get it that internally and truly that there is no separation, but practically there is, though.
Yeah, I think that's what we're seeing because we continue to say this. And so we are separating, you said practically, but we're literally separating. We're trying to form different cultures within this country. We have the Black National Anthem. First of all, that don't make no sense. How could it be national and then how can it be black?
Yeah, it's not.
And so that doesn't make any sense. But black people should have their own anthem. No, they shouldn't. I don't think Asians should have their own anthem. I don't even know what that means. Asians. It's it's weird to me. What do you mean Asians? You mean the Russians?
Technically, then me and myself and Dwayne The Rock Johnson should be the same because he's also Asian. Polynesian.
That was a joke.
I don't know. That didn't come out as a joke, but it came out as a joke. Sorry about that. Sorry. But I thought Polynesian is part of Pacific Islander though.
Yeah. So they say Asian Pacific Islander.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I do believe that if you continue down this path and you really convince yourself we have different cultures and we must be able to, conserve these cultures, you have to respect these separate cultures, and you continue down this path and you try to make cases for it, which people are doing. They're making cases for it. America won't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're let's say we have an ancestry from Korea. And we insist on saying, you got to be able to keep this culture. and the culture is Korean. You got to speak Korean in schools. You got to teach them to wear Korean garb. You got to teach them about the importance of their history in Korea. Not only that, you should teach these other non-Koreans about the importance of this Korean culture. Because of Koreans, America is what it is. If I said that, you might think that's crazy. Maybe now, not so much, but like even 10, 20 years ago, you would have thought that was crazy. Why? Because Korean culture isn't American culture. It's just not. Koreans can come to America, but Koreans need to assimilate to the culture. So what is American culture? So that being said, I guess I could develop that more, but I wanted to get to your, bottom line question, which is if you believe that your church needs to have multi-ethnicity, meaning different people of these different subcultures, that's what makes a good church. I think you're foolish, first of all, because all that stuff falls by the wayside when it comes to Christ. Whether a kimchi or a chicken parm, it matters not in the big scheme of things when I'm talking about gathering as one in the table of Jesus Christ. So that doesn't matter then.
What about, so I understand that it truly does not matter. What about comfort though? Like you asked before, is there any more value to a leadership that is represented, as we can say, versus one that is homogenous, like one skin tone?
And that's like the good and bad, right? That's the pros and cons of the very many, the plethora of churches we have today in, let's say, even in one place. Well, even look at where we are in Bergen County in New Jersey. How many churches can you go to? You go to a ton of churches, any kind of church.
Yeah.
Any flavor of the month you could go. And I think that's what one person, I forget, I was listening to a podcast, one person said, well, that's one thing that the Romans have for them is that they don't separate churches by that. They just separate churches by locality. Right. And so, we don't have the 10th Presbyterian Church of Wayne or something like that,
more
right?
Uniform.
You just have the Presbyterian Church in Wayne, and then you have the Presbyterian Church in Fort Lee, you have the Presbyterian Church, in Elizabeth or whatever it is, right? That's what you had.
Yeah.
But that's what you'll have for Roman parishes. But here, it could be up to the 10th. And that's one thing that people could say is a con of having so many churches. You could just go to whatever flavor fits you best instead of saying, this is the local church and I need to gather with other fellow believers. That's just what it is. And now it's like, this guy didn't say hi to me. Let me try another church. Or this place doesn't have enough kimchi. Let me try another church where they promise kimchi every Sunday, something like that. Or another place is like, I think kimchi is nasty. If they serve kimchi, I'm never going to go there. Like all these things come into your purview when deciding on what church to go to, which is quite unfortunate.
But wouldn't saying that, representation is unimportant, isn't that wrong as well? Because it's not a bad thing, right? Like, is it a bad thing? Like, how important is it?
And so local churches should reflect the surrounding demographics. That's normal.
Yeah.
Okay. And because we have such a large, spread of different ethnicities, people can go to a place where it seems a little more, people look a little more like them. Like I give the example a lot, but Redeemer Church was one of them in New York City. When Tim Keller went, it's about 40% Asian. And so, or 50%. It was over 40, close to 50, some around there. And I would say, hey, that's an Asian church. It just is, right? And as a joke, and people couldn't say anything to that. People flocked there because so it wasn't like Koreans are really going, not like Korean immigrants or Chinese immigrants. They weren't going. It's people like you and me who grew up here, who had some issue with their immigrant church, a lot of them. and would go to Redeemer Church. And so they got a lot of that. And Tim Keller understood this because he even writes in one of his books about the differences between an Asian Christian with that kind of filial loyalty that they were brought up with versus the white Christian who actually was hurt by their parents because they thought they didn't give me enough love or something to that effect.
So the reason why I ask this question is because I'm trying to understand, I guess, the importance of representation. And I kind of wanted to ask it this way is, for our church, in our town in particular, our church does not represent the demographic of this particular town. Actually, as a matter of fact, there are people that come from 20 plus minutes away to come to this church. And I get it that, this is a almost like a church plant in a sense, right? From a Korean church that was an English ministry. And so I understand that there's people that attended that Korean church that were part of this English ministry that are now part of our church now. But even if you think about Korean churches in general, there are people that travel 40 plus minutes to come to this Korean church simply because of the fact that it's Korean and they are comfortable within a Korean setting. I bet you on their way to that Korean church, they have passed at least 5 churches, but they come to this particular Korean church because there's comfort there. If we are saying that these people came to this church to be comfortable, isn't it something that we could say in terms of, hey, you know what? If that's the case, why don't we have churches that have more representation and leadership so that members can be comfortable here?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a well taken point, which I don't agree with, but it's still well taken. And I think you obviously don't agree with that, but you're just making the point.
No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, but here's the response to that. We shifted. So we were a Korean church.
Yeah.
We were a Korean immigrant church. If you know anything about our personal history, we were a Korean immigrant church, and not just the Korean immigrants, but the children of Korean immigrants. So they call us the second gen or whatever you want to call it, that didn't really understand the Korean culture because as much as our parents wanted to teach us, we vibed or, we resonated with the American culture more. We grew up here, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I learned about George Washington. I didn't learn about King Sejong. I didn't.
King Sejong?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
The guy who created the Korean language?
I know him, yeah.
I learned about him in college when I took Korean classes.
Oh.
Yeah, so I didn't know about King Sejong. My parents didn't tell me that. You know what I mean? Mm. And so I learned about, G-dubs, and I learned about the apple tree or the cherry tree.
Was that Abraham?
No.
What did he do?
He didn't.
He made a log cabin. Actually, I read in a biography.
No.
He did. I think he did.
He freed the slaves.
No, I know.
Like
no, yeah. I know he did that.
He was the 16th president of the United States. No. He started the Republican Party.
I know.
Yeah.
But he also made a log cabin. Mm. I thought he was the cherry tree guy. Okay, but
anyway, and so those are the things that you grew up learning, right? And that's what we kind of learned growing up. We would now reject that kind of ethnic segregation only because that's not what the Bible teaches. So we shifted. I hope you understand that we were like that, and then we shifted. So we were from a Korean immigrant background, second gen, and while we appreciate everything that our parents did to try and survive here, we also understand that it's important to assimilate with the culture. It's important to be, loyal and patriotic to the country that you are a part of, to wish its well-being, to wish good on the land and not ill, and to be part of it while we are sojourning. All these things are in the Bible. It's very important. So to do that, we became independent, and we didn't ever label ourselves Korean. I don't speak Korean in the sermons, even though I can't. Even if I could, I wouldn't, but I can't, so it doesn't matter. I know some Korean jokes that I could tell, probably.
I don't know if people understand it.
I mean, my wife doesn't understand it. She's Korean. She doesn't think it's funny.
So I don't know if that's a joke. I don't.
Yeah. So, and those are things that I may have maybe more familiarity than a non-Korean, I suppose.
Sure.
But in the end, I don't necessarily think that that would be my primary identifier, even here on this earth, while I'm sojourning as a Korean. Whether you agree or disagree, I guess we could say that for another time.
And I think I guess just to supplement what you were saying, I think someone being comfortable doesn't necessitate a leadership like change or the mix up of leadership.
So, right. And so now we are where we are, and we are who we are because of where we come from. But we recognize that the primary reason why we should gather, or if we believe that in our second generation, as we continue on this legacy that we've been handed down by our parents, if we make ethnicity or ethnic diversity an end in itself because of what we have been given, and we just want to, go against that, I believe that we reject the gospel. And I want to tell you why. Because when we were talking about the Bible talks about the measure of faithfulness. So the goal isn't any kind of proportional representation, but we have the marks of the church that we see, which is what? Faithful preaching, the right administration of the sacraments, and
Discipline.
Christian discipline, right? Which is what unity is, by the way. So when we say discipline, it's to keep church unity.
Right.
And so when we have, let's say, preaching, sacraments, and unity, you have a church. That's the actual measure of a church or its faithfulness. What we've added to it is we've added this as a primary identifier, indicator of what a church should have. It should be multi-ethnic, and that became like the primary drive. And then what happened was all churches could do then, I don't know, starting from whenever this was a thing, was talk about their own races and talk about, let's say, the evils of another thing. It all became banal to me because I get tired of all that stuff, because that's not the important stuff. That's not the stuff that should get us excited. Not like, oh, look at all the oppression I have as this ethnic minority. But in fact, it is more of, look at all the privileges I have as a child of Christ. And if someone's going to stop me and stop my worshiping of Christ, that's the actual oppression. That's persecution. But if you're not stopping that, I don't see how that really is persecution. What someone said, ching chong ding dong, and then now I'm like all up in arms saying, oh no, woe is me. I get it that it's better for a culture not to do that. But at the same time, did they stop my worship? I bet there are other places in the world, they won't say ching chong ding dong to you, and yet you can't worship God there. Take for instance China.
They won't say that there. I tell you that much.
They won't say ching chong ding dong to you, but you can't say that to them either. But they'll stop your worship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
What's worse? Honestly, I feel as if we live in a society where we think that the former is worse.
Yeah.
It's not. Not being able to worship God is infinitely more worse.
Yep.
Infinitely more worse.
Yep.
And so, I get it. We want to make a better society. We want to continue to increase in our liberalities or the freedoms that we have in our worship. But just because someone doesn't understand some of your culture, or someone looks at you and be like, I don't understand why you look this way, it shouldn't make us be like, all right, I got to start my own church, or something like that. Or I need to make sure everybody's in harmony with each other so we don't say this to each other. No, that stuff comes way after. The faithful preaching, the rightful administration of the sacraments, the Christian discipline or unity of the church, those things are primary. I believe all these other things flow from that. So to answer your question of should we, why can't we represent, like, let's say the locale or the community or whatnot? I think we should, but the first measure is faithfulness.
Right. Okay.
It shouldn't be looking for a non-Korean. So let's say a bunch of us are Korean. It shouldn't be looking for non-ethnically Koreans. We should be looking for people who are faithful,
Yeah.
people who fit the bill when it comes to biblical qualifications. So if you look at our leadership, and let's say we have a non-Korean there, because we have a few now. Is it because they're non-Korean? We're like, oh, can't we tag this guy? Non-Korean. No, you know that if you're from our church, this guy was 100% qualified for the job. And we love the fact that he, or even she, was there
Yeah.
to fit this role.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that would be a way healthier sign for a church than let's make sure we get, we got like 20 people that are Korean. Let's make sure we have at least one Korean leader. Oh, we got like 50 people that are Latino. Let's make sure we got 1.5 leaders that are Latino. I do not think that that is a healthy way to progress, because what you are foregoing is that you need the most qualified, the highest measure of faithfulness for leadership positions, not some bare minimum, because your ultimate priority is this diversity quotient that you have.
So I understand that outside of it blocking worship, for example, like in language, right? If there's a language barrier. So outside of it blocking worship, I understand that representation or diversity isn't necessarily a very important thing within a church. But I guess my question would be like, then where is it? Like, is it anything? Is it something? Like, is there any good to it? Like, what is it? Because, and the reason why I'm asking this is because so many churches are chasing it. It makes me think, is it something? Like, is it something that we should even consider or think about? Because all these other churches are prioritizing this thing.
Well, we want all nations to hear the gospel, repent. And so when you see, let's say, an ethnic group that just isn't very Christian, maybe you could be like, I feel for this group, I want this group to become Christian. I don't know, this might be controversial, but let's say you're in Minnesota, Minneapolis, and you see a bunch of Somalis, and they're like 99% Muslim.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I love these Somalis. I want them to be Christian.
Yeah.
And you minister to them in
Yeah.
particular.
Yeah.
And you do whatever it takes to get them. So, you don't speak Somali. You don't know what the culture is like. You don't know what kind of foods they eat. Apparently, they eat more than bananas and rice. That's what I've been told. And so you're like, oh, what kind of foods do they eat? And so you hire somebody that is from Somalia that can help you reach out to them. That's not bad.
Wait, why is that controversial?
Because the Somalis and is it John Piper? He had a bunch of tweets with that, and so this could sound controversial, but hopefully it's not what I said.
No, I don't think that's controversial. Like, why? That's just, isn't that just good stewardship? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be controversial, to be honest. And I think that's something that you could actually see. Oh, they got this guy to help them minister to the Somalian people.
Yeah.
Okay, so there it is, real diversity ethnically that you can actually incorporate in your church. But I do not think that's the way most churches function. I think they think that it's simply about skin color. It's about making sure that someone up there looks like me or went through a similar experience.
Yeah.
So I went through this experience as a woman, so I want a woman up there to tell me about how I should feel, something to that effect.
I actually wanted to move in that direction because we've been talking about, ethnicities, cultures, and whatnot. What about the difference between genders? What if, and what's really interesting is actually today I was looking up a church in our area, and this was I was just looking at their leadership because that's one of the first pages I go to is just their leadership, just to see if I know anybody there. But this church has all male pastors, all male elders, and the rest of their staff. I want to say their entire staff is probably, we're looking at like 30 people. The rest of their staff are all women. All their pastors are men. All their elders are men. And they have like 16 elders. And the rest of their staff are all women. I thought that was so interesting. and because they're not being unbiblical, right? All their leaders are men, but all the other supporting roles.
Yeah,
are
say what
all
you want to
women.
say.
No, so I thought it was just really interesting.
Interesting. Say what you want to say.
No, that's what I wanted to say.
It's not interesting to me. Why is it interesting to you?
No, I just that's just super interesting. So I guess no. So my question is, how do we is representation with men and women something? I understand culturally not as important. Men and women, is it something? Because I think there is something universal about a man's experience versus a woman's experience that all women can speak to, that men maybe can't always speak to. So
Well, that's why Titus 2 is there for us.
Right,
Older
so-
women should speak into younger women's lives.
right. And so is there a thing in which women need to be represented in a church leadership, or else it's a bad leadership?
No, I don't think so. I think that's not one of the qualifications. Representation is not one of the qualifications in church leadership, and representation has now been taken as an inherent good or a value that must be upheld.
Right.
Which I believe is the reason why the churches have gone to a more and more liberal shift. So it starts off with women, but you see how women and ethnicity, they're not the same. The
No.
divisions
No.
between the two are not the same. So we've gone from ethnicity to women, but in our progressive society today, they are the same.
I see.
Right? So, women, black people,
Just minorities
Asian
at that
people,
point, right? They're
minorities,
considered
they're all
minorities.
kind of
Yeah.
the same.
Right, right, right,
They've been suppressed by the white man.
right.
I said it wrong. White man.
That is accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. And so because they've been suppressed by the white man, they all belong in this very Marxist defined oppressed class. It's quite unfortunate that we see the world that way. But women and ethnic diversity are very, very different. And so diversity of gender, diversity of the ethnicities, again, completely different. It's a different conversation. But because we have been so made stupid by Marxism, this is a dumbed down separation. It's a reductive, simplistic, and also incorrect. In my personal opinion, I suppose, but I guess that's why we have the Q&A. You could try to prove me wrong, but women are and men are distinguished by God, the Maker. They are different. They have different roles, naturally and spiritually, meaning physically and spiritually. They have different roles, and in the church, that should be most apparent. It should be most apparent because what we want to reflect are not just simply natural laws, but the ultimate and spiritual law, the spiritual laws that God has given us. So there should be a clear difference between men and women in the church. Hey, 1 Corinthians 11 really, really shows this. It's like, hey, why aren't you wearing your head coverings? What's going on? And so make sure you understand that you have someone over you and put on that head covering, because that's what the head covering meant. The head covering meant someone's over you, right? And so, men, stop wearing head coverings. What's wrong with you? You're a man, that kind of thing, right? And so you have 1 Corinthians 11, which now in modern day, no one understands a word because we have such a convoluted idea of what men and women are. We can't even understand basic natural concepts, which is what Paul was pointing to. Natural concepts. That means God is revealing his character within nature. We don't even understand it. And our pushback is, well, there's a bunch of gay species in nature too. It's like, yeah, that's called disorder. But then, just because you see it doesn't mean it's natural.
Yeah.
What is natural? What was meant to be? What propagates species? What continues this line? What leads to flourishing? All those things that instead of thinking about that, it's like, oh, well, I see one instance here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we have gone to, La La Land when it comes to, let's say, even understanding gender properly. And so that's unfortunate, but we're seeing it in the churches, and we must expel this kind of thinking within the churches. So if you say you're Reformed, confessional, you are conservative, whatever it is, expel this notion that if you don't have women representation, you're not doing something right. You have to expel it.
So I am not even going to go towards the position, not position. I'm not even going towards like the view of women eldership. Obviously not. I'm talking about women just in leadership positions within the church. Women maybe even being a part of the service order. Like if, like you said, there is a distinction between men and women, which is very clear in the Bible, shouldn't there be women up there to rep the women if it really is different?
Yeah, I that's the question I asked you last week, and you answered it. Just like that's the exact question I asked last week, and you answered it.
We need to delete that portion, and then we'll just keep this one.
Wait, David, did you edit last week too? You did.
David is a magician. I just need to say this. Have you seen the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dark Magician? He is that.
Yeah. Speaking of random references,
Dark Magician Girl, actually.
And so one of the things that, first of all, I'll tell you the story that I told some people recently. Recently, I had a long talk with my wife, and I forget all the details. I guess I should get it for you, but forget all the exact details or the footnotes that I should put on, but I just don't have it right now offhand. But it was about homeschool.
Okay.
And not homeschool. It's about stay-home moms. Sorry.
Okay.
It's about stay-home moms, right? And so I said, stay-home moms have the stigma. And whether you like it or not, they just have the stigma of being unkempt or even dirty.
Like stay-home moms?
In our culture. I'm not saying they are. I'm saying they have the stigma. And so no woman wants to be a stay-home mom because, you don't want to be looked on as like dirty, unorganized, like all over the place.
I see. Oh,
that kind of thing,
okay.
right?
Okay, interesting.
And so, yeah, it is interesting that there is this stigma, whether you know it or not. That's how people feel, which I feel it's quite unfortunate. But, I wanted to explore not only why that's the case, but the case that, that we've all kind of fallen for it. We all kind of think it in the back of our heads. And maybe you're like, I don't think that, and I think they're the best. They're so whatever. Yeah, sure. Then be a stay-home mom. No. I like working. So all right. Then why don't you think that stay-home moms are good enough for you? Because I like working. To each their own. Okay, so we get into that. So my wife and I were talking. I'm trying to get into it. And I'm trying to give her, some of the history that we talked about before. And like I said, I don't remember the exact title of the book, but there is this woman who did write for Cosmo. And it was, she was writing for Cosmo in the 70s and 80s, right? And she needed to write articles, because this is what she was told, her and the other writers. She needed to write articles about how... the working woman is powerful, independent, someone to look up to, almost like someone admirable.
Right.
And then when they were looking for people to interview, they couldn't find any. So you know what they did?
Made it up.
They just made it up. And so all these Cosmo magazine articles are talking about women that never existed. In fact, the women back then, what they did was they really enjoyed staying home. They liked raising their kids. They liked the freedom of having to work part-time if they had the time. So that's why they wanted to get educated. So it's not like they didn't want to get educated. They wanted to learn. They wanted to grow. And they wanted to be people that are capable so they could help their husbands in the provision. But they knew that what they could do, what they had to do, no one else could do, which was raise their kids. Okay? And so they liked staying home. Maybe they had a part-time job here and there, but they really liked staying home. So the culture needed to be subverted. They needed to change that because they wanted women to start working again. There are famously, Elizabeth Warren wrote a book in the early 2000s, The Two-Income Trap. And now we live in a society that you have to have two people working. Otherwise, you can't survive as a family. How are you going to pay your mortgage if only you work? You can't.
Right.
You're going to be so stressed. And so... what you are, you're going to be so stressed, like,
Yeah.
well, I can't pay this mortgage. You have to work, right? And then who's going to take care of your kids? So essentially what you're doing is you're going to work for someone else to take care of your kids. That's what it is. So people start to realize this, right? But then they're in this trap now because you can't do anything else. So women now have been convinced that you want to work. Like, I don't want to stay home. I like going out. I like working. I like my independence. I like my freedom. I like getting a paycheck and feeling good that I'm doing something good in society. That's how they really feel. And I'm saying that was formed by culture. So I'm talking to my wife. I'm saying this was formed by culture. This was not formed by the Bible. And because it was formed by culture, that's something to watch for or understand. Or do you see that this is something that the culture has formed? And then, obviously, she was getting it. But, I shouldn't say obviously, but she was getting it. And then, one of the things that she would give us pushback is, but what if you just like working? I don't, what if you just don't like staying home? And I said, what if I don't reject that completely? What if I go, that's possible. Not all women are the same. They're not all made from the same cookie cutter mold, right? Women can be different. However, what if I told you that that's maybe like 80% of culture forming it, maybe 20% of personality? But it could also be 100% because culture or personality is formed by culture too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there are all these things that you need to start to consider. So even in our decision making as conservative, reformed, confessional Christians, whatnot, perhaps in our formulation about thinking about everyday like life and job and career, it's been shaped by this progressive, leftist, anti-family culture, and we don't even know. Like, we don't even know. Perhaps, like, how can you know unless you knew everything that I just told you, right?
Yeah.
Unless you knew everything that I just told you about how they were, like the feminists were subversive in trying to inject this incorrect non-reality and made this something that people believe is reality, that all these women, they really want freedom. Well, it's not the case. And then, so if you don't want freedom, you must be just a lowly housewife or a lowly stay-home mom or something like that. Okay, so here's the book. It's called Subverted. And it's the subtitle is How I Helped the Sexual Revolution Hijack the Women's Movement. And it talks about a lot of things, but it's by Sue Ellen Browder. I do believe I talked about it a little bit before. And so it's a book that you could get, I suppose, if you'd like. But anyway, she realizes later she was part of the whole propaganda. And she is a propagandist because she was influencing other people with the thinking that she was influenced by. And the personal choices of women became subverted because these were the choices of women, and they somehow were able to subvert it through culture, through mass media, like manipulation, I would say even say hypnosis, to get people to think that staying home and raising your kids is a low job, second, third tier job. Your first primary goal is to make sure you have a good career. And that's why there's all this talk about, why am I not getting the same thing as men or equal pay and all that stuff. All that stuff has come from this. And so, if you really want truth, you want integrity, you want to be able to have the justice that you really seek, I would say you got to be able to see through the lies first. So that being said, I do believe that has also been injected into our church culture, which I find very dismaying. I don't like it. Like, you feel like you have to do something for women. Like, oh, what if the women don't feel like they're appreciated? Well, I'll say appreciate them, man. Appreciate the heck out of them. But, I have to do it in the way the world expects me to. And I would say, no, you don't. What you should do is you should educate properly as an elder and give them the correct doctrines, and you should show them love as the Bible teaches them love. Now, that being said, not everybody's gonna receive it well. That's a fact, right? And so not everybody's going to receive it. Maybe some people are still going to be like, well, I heard what you had to say. I heard you about what you had to say about what Browder said about it in her book and what she experienced. And I still don't feel it. Well, yeah, then you don't feel it. What am I going to, I'm not there to manipulate your feelings just as I'm saying your feelings have been manipulated. I'm not going to manipulate it back, but I am going to tell you this is history and this is what happened. And I hope that you understand it. Hopefully understanding that will actually help you deal with some of the things that you feel and why you feel like this is a necessity in your life. Like you need to be up there on stage. You need to say, because I could say it better than any man, you know what I'm saying? So I could say it better than another man. Why can't I say it? You know, that kind of thing. Instead of thinking that, it's really about how can I be a good wife that respects her husband? I mean, what woman goes home in 2026 and starts thinking about, man, I really wish I could be submissive to my husband. I really wish I could serve him. What woman? I'll tell you what woman. Godly woman will think that, and not godly woman will be upset at that. How dare you say that? Well, what if I said the same thing and flip the roles? You would say Jack to that, and that is, if a man goes home and is like, how can I serve my wife? I really want to serve her. I really want to just lift her up. I bet you wouldn't say anything to that. But all of a sudden I flip it and it's like a woman has to be like, how can I serve my husband? It's like, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? And that's the milieu that we're in. That's the milieu where a woman might want to think that, but she's kept from thinking that because even amongst her friends, she doesn't want to seem weak or dirty, or like not enough, not up to snuff compared to other women. And so you formulate this kind of culture, you make it, and then guess what? It's everywhere. It's in your workplace, it's in your homes, it's in your churches. And I get it that here in New Jersey, it's going to be a very, very uphill battle. It's like an 85-degree battle, not a full 90, but like 85. And you're basically climbing a vertical wall. But that's where we are.
So I understand that your explanation has to deal with, I guess, really the base and the root of where this desire even comes from and where this question even comes from. But I think it makes me think people still complain about this. Why can't a woman do scripture reading? Why can't a woman go up there and pray? Why can't a woman do this or that if they are good at it?
Yeah. What if they're gifted at it? What if they believe that they've been called to it, or
what if they
have this
at that
talent for it? Right.
And granted, it's not unbiblical, like women eldership, right? But what if they're gifted? Like, what if we had a news anchor at our church? That's a female. Would we not let her, I don't know, go up on stage and say stuff, even though this is what she's really good at? Like, is that what we're saying? Simply because you're a woman, you can't do this, or what?
I think women can be great at a lot of things. Maybe most, if not near everything, a man can do.
Yeah,
and that's not me being a feminist. I'm the furthest away from being a feminist, but I'll say that. I'll admit to that.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that they should, though. It doesn't mean that they should. I think that's what people don't understand. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it. That is a foolish connection. If P then Q, that's a foolish conditional sequence there. It's should you do it?
right.
Should you do it, and then why should you do it? That's it. That's what it is. I'll give you another thing. Just because you'd be a good pastor doesn't mean you should pastor. Who should be a pastor? Those who are called, right? We see that's pretty clear, but we don't see it in any other vocation in life, right? We just see it for pastorship, which also is weird, maybe indicative of our time, but not everyone should be a pastor. Maybe you're really good at preaching, doesn't mean you should be a pastor. Maybe you're really good at counseling, doesn't mean you should be a pastor. Maybe you're really good at administration, doesn't mean you should be a pastor. It just doesn't. So who should be? Those who are called. That's pretty simple. But now you go into life. Are there things that which God has called you to do? As a man, yes. As a woman, yes. Should those things be primary? Hopefully the answer to that after this logical sequence should be yes. Yes. So what have women been called to do? What is one of the highest roles a woman can have? Why do we look at it so low now? And shouldn't we start thinking, why did that change? For thousands of years, this was the highest degree of praise we could give a woman, just like they gave to Rebecca, maybe mother of thousands or something like that. Remember in Genesis? Maybe you could read that. Let's just go to it and read that.
This is Genesis chapter 24, verse 60. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate him.
They sang a song for her. They loved her. And this is the highest praise that they could give her, that she would bear children. Okay? What about now? What's the highest praise you could give someone? It's like, wow, she's CEO. And then you look at her so well, but then if she raised 4 kids, it's like, what a dirty person. I don't know whatever it is, right? You could even give lip service, I suppose. Oh, that's great that you gave 4. What if she had 10 children? You know what I mean? I don't know if we had the highest accolades for a woman who gave birth to 10. Maybe in our church, actually. Our church kind of is changing in culture. We always talk about what women could give birth really well. I think your wife is at least top 3.
I would love to have more children.
Yeah, super healthy, would
love to.
Loves children, wants a lot of children.
I would make the argument that I am a better teacher and better with children, though. We actually have argued that in our house. That's our dinner table argument.
No need to argue.
It's a friendly debate.
Yeah, because both of you are teachers.
I think I'm better, though. She will disagree.
She's amazing.
I think we're going to have a teach-off, I think.
I think she's amazing. Yeah, so when she teaches, all the kids get everything she teaches.
Me too.
Yeah, you get everything she teaches, absolutely.
No.
And so you included with the children get everything that she teaches.
Thank you
But
for
when
the
you
lesson.
teach, she doesn't always get it, nor do your students, right?
No, I think
that's something that
they
we
all
can walk
get
away
it.
from. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, going back to what we were saying is well, the highest accolade a woman could get, which was amazing. Let's say in Genesis or something like that. Well, why was Eve called Eve, right? The highest praise that Adam could call Eve was to name her because he had the ability and the wisdom to name people and name animals, name things. And guess what he names his wife?
Eve.
Eve. Why?
Isha.
Because she would be the mother of all the living. And so that is an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing. But I think now it's like, how dare you? How dare you belittle me to just being a womb? Well, that's not what mothering is. That's not what mothering is. It's not just being a womb. That's crazy. First of all, you not only mischaracterize what it means to be a woman or a mother, you mischaracterize it on purpose. It's like you're purposefully being dull when it comes to this. You purposely mischaracterize so you can be artificially offended. I don't know, for whatever reason. And so, no, that's not why. And so now it seems as though that if you're saying, oh, look at her, she's a mother, it's like that should be placed maybe last or second or third, you know what I mean? Of a woman's accomplishments or something like that. You know who can't be a mother? You.
I mean, the role of mother is above all. And I think I just want to just quickly go back to your point about gifts. You were talking about the fact that even if someone is good at something, doesn't necessarily mean that they have to do it. They have to use it. But I've heard this argument used for women deacons, where this is 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 14. And Paul is speaking to Timothy, and he writes, "Do not neglect the gift you have, which was given you by prophecy when the council of elders laid their hands on you." I know that's specifically talking about Timothy, but also in 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 10 and 11, it reads, "As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another." So if a woman has a gift, shouldn't she be using it for the sake of the church?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So if a woman is especially gifted in public speaking or something like that, shouldn't that be used?
I don't know. Public speaking is not a gift.
Talent.
No, it's not a gift. All right. I mean, this is where we could differ, and maybe it's semantics, but teaching is a gift.
Right.
If you have the ability to teach, that's a gift.
Yeah.
And perhaps in that ability to teach, one thing that you're really good at is speaking in public.
Sure.
I don't know how that makes sense, but I think you can maybe think that. I'll tell you why I don't think that. I've been tasked with public speaking. Mm-hmm. I'm supposed to give sermons. Mm-hmm. You know my history, right? I was deathly afraid of speaking in public. In high school, I was a pretty good debater. So I would debate amongst my friends and stuff like that, or people that I would know. And, pretty good at it because I feel like I won most of the time, things like that. But public speaking, I was deathly afraid. I went up there in debate class and my knees would knock together because it just involuntarily. It would knock together so hard that it would make noises during my presentation. Like, bop, 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 bop. No, but that's how nervous I was. And it was involuntary.
Yeah.
Speaking and public speaking became something that you develop. I developed the skill of speaking in public over time. And maybe some people, it comes more naturally than others. But who cares if you could speak well in public if you teach them garbage? There's a bunch of people that are really good, let's say, in our eyes, public speakers. But they're garbage teachers. They teach us garbage. They lead us down the garbage path. And you would still say that's a gift from God. No. I disagree. And so that's where I would kind of diverge from some of the stuff, or push back from some of the stuff. Not what you're saying, but basically what what's taken as common knowledge. Public speaking is a talent. Like, yeah, you don't think people work hard for it? People work hard for it. And people work hard to develop the skill, and you need a certain amount of talent to go past that skill. But to say that it's an actual gift, then I would say you need to get there. Then I would say the gift that we really want to address here is the gift of teaching. Mm-hmm. And if we're addressing the gift of teaching, I would go to say that not everyone should be teachers, my brothers, for you will be judged more harshly. And so just because you could teach doesn't mean you should do it. And if you are to do it, you should do it wisely and well. By what standard? By what standard should you teach that? According to the Word of God.
The reason why I bring this up, though, is I'm trying to make, not a defense, but maybe like a claim for women being in the order of service or women being on stage.
You want that? You want that?
No, I'm just trying to make because I think that's an accusation that someone could make about a church like our church.
But do you want that?
Do I want that?
You're an elder of the church. You could bring that up in the session saying, this is my petition.
I mean, I don't think it's
emotion.
I don't think it's necessary.
But that's what you want?
It's just not necessary, I don't think.
So you want it?
Do I want it? I'm like zero, like, I'm extremely neutral. I'm like Belgium.
Chocolate.
I heard it's good.
Belgic.
No, that's the confession. Belgian, I think, is the waffle and the chocolate. But I'm just wondering, like, what if someone gave you that response? It's like, hey, this woman's gifted in speaking. Why don't you have her on stage at one point during the service just so maybe some of the other women could feel more comfortable or whatever it is? And I know that's nonsensical, but if someone were to give you that type of reasoning or that thought, what would your response be?
I would say if something necessitates for someone to be up on stage for whatever reason, we find the best person or the suitable person or the qualified person for what is necessitated. Okay,
that makes sense.
And so, are announcements necessary in our church, in our local setting? The answer was no. So we took out announcements. Now, if we put announcements back just to platform a woman, that would mean that women being platformed was what necessitated announcements, which is kind of backwards.
Yep.
And so I bet people do believe that, though. I bet people believe that women being platformed should necessitate anything, right? We just don't believe that in our church. And so we want to stay true to how the Lord leads us through His Word. And when it comes to Sunday service, absolutely, I think I think for the most part, enjoying the role that you've been given would be a blessing. If you could enjoy that role, that's a true blessing. If you could enjoy it. I don't know if people enjoy it anymore. Because when you enjoy it, all these other things follow, passion, the determination, the longevity of it, all this stuff follows. But I don't know if people enjoy it. Now, I'm not saying you got to be happy every single moment. I'm talking about true, deep, profound enjoyment of something, okay? I think it goes beyond than eating like a good bowl of ramen or something like that. It goes beyond that. Or, taking a bite of a really nice burger. It goes beyond that. What I'm talking about is less superficial and more spiritual. And you can find that, then, I think that would be a nice thing for people to have. And to really ultimately find it, I do believe you need to follow what God says in His Word. Otherwise, how can you really enjoy something?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great answer for that, and I think that's helpful. And that's some of the thoughts that someone that visits our church may have and has had before. Multiple people have said this before, and so I think that's a good way for our church to understand why we have the worship order that we do, the liturgy that we do, and why we have the people up there that we do.
I have a question for you then.
No, thank you. I really don't like questions.
You like asking questions. It
I
seems a
love
little hypocritical to just ask the questions and never answer any.
Can I get a fun one?
Yeah.
Okay.
There are perspectives in life. You can't deny it. You have your perspective that you come from, and it can really complement some of the things that I can't see. You know what I mean? So if I'm in the driver's side and you're in the passenger side, you may see things that I, in the driver's side, can't see.
I was going to ask this question.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I actually know
so
this.
women have a perspective you don't have. Shouldn't we have women in our leadership positions to at least complement our perspectives as men?
I think it can be helpful.
So they should be in the leadership to complement men.
I don't think necessarily. I would also respond by saying that everyone on the session has a wife as well. And as a husband, as a session member, as an elder, you should be understanding your people as best as possible, and you should be also leading your wife. And leading your wife involves you understanding what she says and having her intake or her having her kind of take on things. And so I don't think you necessarily need to. Can it be helpful? I think so. But is it necessary? I don't think so.
I think Juzo has a different take. He was so mad he flapped his headphones together.
I wish you would give me easy questions. You give me 99-mile-per-hour fastballs down the left.
On the left.
You don't give me like a softball pitch. You never give me like a nice little, hey, hit this one out of the park.
Junsugi, you have something to say to that?
There's certain PC churches even that have session advisory boards made up strictly of women.
Here. So say that.
So Junsuk said that even there are some PCA churches that have session advisory boards made up of women members.
Strictly women.
Well, I knew that as well. But
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary. I think it can be helpful.
Is it good if they have it?
Is it good?
If a PCA church has that? Junsugi has a clear answer. It's like on the tip of his tongue, but we'll wait for you to answer.
No.
We won't wait for your answer? What's your answer then?
No, I'll wait. I'll listen to what he has to say. Because why do I always talk first?
You know what I mean?
Do I what?
I'm gonna just speak for him.
Why can't you speak for me
He's
sometimes?
saying it's like a gateway drug. It's like marijuana. It's gonna lead you into cocaine. That's what he's saying.
Does it always lead to cocaine?
Does it always? It doesn't always lead to cocaine, but it leads to cocaine.
Does it always? So I remember a couple years ago, there was a whole controversy where I think it was Tim Keller's wife. She came out and she said something along the lines of,
Whatever is not what do you call it? Ordained for a man. Yeah, for a man to do, women should do all of it. Right?
Sorry, say that again.
Whatever has not been designated specifically for a man, meaning eldership, a woman should be able to do all of it.
That's not the quote I was thinking about, but we could go with that.
Right? I mean, I'm paraphrasing, obviously. So it's been specifically said in the Bible that only men can be elders, right?
Right.
So women should be able to do everything else, meaning like whatever elder's not in charge of, whatever it is, like leading ministries or, serving in the church, getting up there reading scripture. Because scripture reading isn't something charged with only what a man can do, right? And so that's what she said. And there was some pushback, and rightfully so, because the pushback, are you looking for the quote?
Yes.
Okay. Shall I wait?
No. Please
Okay.
go ahead.
So the pushback is that actually does not help us truly define what the difference between a man and a woman is. A woman isn't everything a man can be up until eldership. That's not what a woman is. And that's how feminists think, Feminists just take it that one step further, meaning everything a man can do, a woman can do too. And then you just took it one step down. So you're like a almost feminist, where you're saying only eldership because it's been specifically barred for a woman to be elders because of the authentane and 1 Timothy chapter 2 verse 12, I do not permit a woman to teach or have authority over a man. Because of that, we'll just take that out and everything else a woman can do, which obviously goes against 13, 14, 15, which is Paul appealing to creation order, right? Paul appeals to creation order in why a woman can't or is not permitted or cannot teach or have authority over a man is because Adam was formed first, and he's talking about God's creation order. So how are we keeping creation order if we're saying that a woman could do everything a man can do except these two things, right? And so that would be the pushback, because you are not clearly defining what a man's role is and a woman's role is. You're not. You're just saying, I'm just going to go up to the line as far as I can, and that is going to be the moral good. And I don't think that's the good. I think a woman should be the best woman she could be. A man should be the best man he could be. That would be the ultimate good from looking at this order. Not how far can I go to being a man as a woman. That's a good. That seems to me a little backwards. The philosophy and the thinking behind that seems a little backwards to me.
Thank you.
You couldn't find the quote.
No,
Okay.
I couldn't find it. I'm looking for it, but
Do you want me to look for it?
no, it's okay.
Okay.
And so going back to your question of a woman's advisory board, is it necessary? Again, I don't think so. Can it be helpful? I think so. I know Chunsuk wouldn't agree. He doesn't think it's a good thing. I think it can be helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. I think it could be a bad thing in the sense of it could maybe lead down the wrong idea of you absolutely need this for the session to be complete. I think that's the wrong idea. And perhaps if it feeds into that type of ideology and thinking, then it is a bad thing.
Oh yeah, that's a terrible thing, because this is why we have
Right.
we need black people, because we need black representation here
In the session.
We
Yeah,
need
right.
Latino representation here. We need children representation. Children need to represent themselves. So we need more young people here. Blah blah blah. So elders
Yeah.
can't be elders anymore.
Right.
They're just a group. No longer, because
Right.
you know where elders come from. Elders come from old people.
Right,
So
right.
old people. Yeah.
But
I
I mean,
found the quote. Damn.
but I mean, like, would I ask my wife, like, hey, how would the moms react to this? Or what do you think the moms would need in a situation or an event like this? If I ask her something like that, that would be kind of like an advisory board, and her opinion would mean something to me. Not that it would change everything that the session does, but I would take that into consideration, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I found the quote. You want me to talk about it?
Yes, please.
It's from Jesus, Justice, and Gender Roles. Yeah. Page 21. Stated the way we do at Redeemer. Anything that an unordained man is allowed to do, a woman is also allowed to do. And so, you know, she says everything except for what's in the office of elder a woman should be able to do. Yeah. And so, she got a lot of pushback from feminists, but, if you're also a conservative, you would push back on that. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Which people did. And that's why we have this discussion that we had between narrow and broad complementarianism.
Yep.
Right? Oh, yeah. So there's that.
Okay. I mean, how would you answer the
was the
woman
question?
the woman advisory board?
Oh, me? Yeah, I think if you have a woman advisory board, it's because you have a bunch of men who don't know what women are thinking. That's unfortunate. Maybe you need it. I would say, as graciously as I can, may that advisory board be as short-lived as possible. And close it up and lead the way you should, elders. Lead the way you ought to. You don't need an advisory board. You need to be able to listen better. And, maybe in effect, we do have advisory boards just in an unofficial capacity in all these places, because your wives will tell you what they think.
Yeah.
None of our wives are like these quiet, they just take it, whatever's given to them. All of our wives are, they'll say what's on their mind to us. And so, I think we have very strong women in our church, which is why our daughters are so strong.
I think that's really important and helpful for us to understand in terms of representation, what it looks like in the church, and perhaps the ways that we have been misguided by society in how important representation is, how it should look like in the church, and now what the Bible says about representation, what really is important, and the goal of the church, which is worship of the Lord. So I think that's a helpful reminder for us this morning. I did want to maybe not continue this topic, but next week, hopefully, we could talk about a church and what it means that a church is a right fit. What does that mean for a church to be a right fit? Does a church have to be a right fit for us to attend? Is that not the case? How do we discern that? I wanted to talk about that maybe next week, if that's okay.
Sure.
Moving on to our next segment, we're talking about a current event, and the polls are in. This is a result from the Gallup poll. This was posted mid-April, and the title is "Rise in Young Men's Religiosity Realigns Gender Gaps." For the first time in 25 years, men in the ages between 18 and 29 have gone up in the polls in, how do I say this? 42% of men ages 18 to 29 have said that religion is very important to them. And this is the first time that this number has gone up like this in 25 years, or I think in a very, very long time. And now, whereas women were the highest prior, now it has flipped in that age range. And so we're seeing a surge of young men going to church. We're seeing a surge of young men saying that religion is very, very important to them, which is, I think, a very encouraging sign. But I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. I know this is a big deal. This is something that we have been kind of lamenting, the fact that we don't have men leading anymore, especially Christian men leading in the family. And so your thoughts on this result?
Yeah, I think we should be, taking advantage of this kind of cultural trend or shift. It may last, it may not last, but as long as we should take advantage. I think men in particular have been feeling a little disenfranchised because they've been, castigated as, toxic masculinity, that kind of white colonialism. If you're a white man, you're actually the evil. One thing that leftists have left a hole in then is, where do these males fit in society? If they're just the bane of all evil things, right? of all things, and they're just the evil of society, then how can we raise men? What are some things that we could say to men? If you just say, stop being toxic, what are we saying? So they should be just like women, So that kind of confusion, that whole, has led, I think, a lot of young men to think, all right, where do they teach us on how to be like men? So they're going to church. And I think we just can't miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
You teach your young men on how to be men. There's that J.C. Ryle book too, right? That's a great book.
Thoughts for young men.
That we go over with our young men too. But there's a bunch of books out there. I do believe that we also did Vodi Bachum's book on young men, right?
The family shepherds.
No, about women.
Oh, what he must be.
Yeah, for his daughters.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of that too. And so I hope that churches can take opportunity then to teach young men on what it means to truly be masculine, because now if you say you're masculine, there is no positive side to masculine in the leftist culture. So what does it mean to be masculine? What does it mean to be someone with, a good amount of testosterone?
Right.
How do you channel all that energy, and how do you use that drive for the glory of God, rather than saying any kind of masculine drive you have is inherently evil, which would confuse young men, obviously. How do you use that drive for good? How do you build yourself to be better men and benefit society that way? And so I think that will be a good opportunity to teach young men. I hope that churches take that up.
And I think this is just an encouragement, I think, for the church in general, that there has been a shift, and this is something that we need to continue to pray for and continue to encourage our young men to take their faith seriously and to continue to grow, to be godly and God-fearing men.
Yeah, I don't know why the shift happened. I do know that if the shift is happening, we must take advantage of it by teaching rightly.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why, when we have our men's groups or things like that, it should be to teach men how to be men. Older men should be teaching younger men how to be good men or good fathers or good husbands and things like that, how to lead the community well, what it means to protect, what it means to guard, what it means to provide, what it means to do all these things that are good, right? And so older men should be teaching younger men. And, I hope we have avenues and opportunities, if they're given to us like that, we'll actually use that to teach young men the good things about being a man.
Agreed. Thank you for that. And we thank you for listening to this episode of the Dear Church podcast. Join us next week as we talk about fitting in at church. Is that a thing? Is that something that we should be striving to do? Is that ever a reason to leave? Is that ever a reason to stay? We'll be talking about church relationships next week. We hope and pray that this has been a blessing in your ears. Fight the good fight, finish the race, keep the faith.
Peace.